The thing with creating content is the first time you do it, you're absolutely going to suck. Don't stop just because the first time you did it, it sucked.
Welcome to another episode of Connected Conversations in Insurance. My name is Nick Barry, and this is presented by Canopy Connect. Today, I've got Uncle Ron, as some of you know him, Ron Wadley, the founder of Insurance for Texans. Ron, give yourself a quick intro and tell me a little bit about your agency.
So, my agency was born out of selling a captive agency that I started 11 years ago and reinventing, much to the chagrin of my wife, who thought it was a terrible idea at the time to start over. But she now agrees it was okay. So in 2017, I sold that captive business, launched the independent agency. It's technically Insurance for Texans Group, but we are affectionately known as Insurance for Texans. We are about 60% commercial and 40% personal on our P&C commission revenue. And we were digital before digital was cool. We've been doing the digital marketing thing since the very beginning. So when COVID happened and the world shut down, we just kept working and we've grown ever since.
Yeah. And for everybody who has hung out in the Facebook groups, everybody who's hung out online, everybody knows like you, but I don't think everybody can appreciate what you just said about your split. So many retail agencies, so many independent agencies they're reversed, or it's even a bigger reverse split where most agencies I talk to, they're like 80-20 split on their personal to commercial. Why and how did you get to that level of commercial split?
So the first 18 to 24 months that the agency started, it was probably 95 personal, 5% commercial. I brought in someone who I eventually allowed to buy in as a partner because I didn't want him to go someplace, but his entire job was to focus on commercial. And he built a nice little book for himself, but he realized very quickly that he was not going to be able to go further with it. And so 2 years ago, I told him that our marketing and our emphasis was going to be commercial. You could start to see the headwinds in the personal lines area with it's well documented what's gone on over the last 2 years. Texas, California, and Florida being ground zero for all of the nastiness in personal lines. And we dedicated ourselves to making that flip. At that point in time, we were about 65 personal, 35 commercial. And over the 2 years, we've completely flipped it and made it viable. One of the biggest things we did about 15 months ago was to heavily niche down.
Yeah, I think it's important because a lot of people will see, oh, I'm going to sell more commercial, but then they'll be like, okay, there's a lot of commercial risk out there, but if you're a generalist, it's really hard. Like you can sell selling a home, it's a generalist line of business, right? It's it's
It's more
homes.
commoditized.
Yeah, it's commoditized, but it's selling me a home policy and selling my neighbor down the road a home policy is almost the same. There's gonna be some slight differences, right, with roof types and the structure.
People have unique needs. They've got various things that you've got to account for. But unlike commercial insurance, it's very commoditized from one home to the next.
Yep.
Businesses, it's not that way. A daycare has a very different set of needs than a general contractor.
Yeah,
If you can't understand that, you probably don't need to be in this business.
every part of the line of the business, like, their work comp needs are different, their BOP is different if they need a BOP. All
Sure.
those things are, and then so let we don't have to go in and I mean, everybody if you go look at your site, it's pretty easy to see what your niche is.
Well, yeah.
But, you know, what made you decide on that niche, and how are you guys doubling down on that, say?
So our two primary niches that we are affecting right now are churches and related educational opportunities like daycares, Mother Day Out, private schools, Montessori schools, things of that nature.
Yep, the stuff
Um,
adjacent.
when Yeah, there's a lot of carryover, a lot of those low education opportunities are housed inside of churches.
Mhm.
Being in Texas in the buckle of the Bible Belt, when you think about the number of opportunities that are available in the state of Texas for church insurance, it's ginormous, right?
I
Feels
used
like.
When I lived in Abilene, I used to joke that there are more churches than bars and gas stations combined in
Oh,
Abilene,
absolutely.
Texas.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah,
You get in the town of Abilene, I think you have 3 private Christian universities.
yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity. I have a former Baptist pastor that is a part of my sales team. He handles our life and health, and he, being a son of a Baptist preacher, a former Baptist preacher himself, creates automatic credibility for us.
Mhm.
It also creates relationship and connection in places that other people might struggle to get it. I am the son of a Baptist preacher and the grandson of a Baptist preacher and went to Baylor, which is the world's largest Baptist university.
Yeah.
I can speak the lingo, right?
Yep.
I speak Texan and I'm a native Texan and all those things. We were actually originally approached by a couple of churches. Hey, can you help us with this? And my first answer was, yes, we can, but let me put some content on the website so that we look like we know what we're doing.
Mhm.
There was a lot of upheaval in that property market. A large insurance company that I'm not going to name out loud because I don't want to create, any sort of disdain from anyone, non-renewed about 30% of the entire church property marketplace in Texas last year.
Mhm.
And what we found very quickly is the content that we were putting on our website began to convert like a slot machine.
It's even funnier with the context.
Exactly, right? But the conversion rate on the website traffic for that content has consistently produced about 30%. That's unheard of
Yeah,
on organic search traffic.
yeah. I dream of those kind of numbers for
Like, it
Yeah,
convert I honestly don't even have to retarget it. That's how
yeah,
bad it is.
yeah.
And we expanded that into the educational opportunities as we began to talk to these churches and figuring out that there were the adjacent opportunities. So we began producing the content as well. And that is now starting to take off as well. So we grew over the last 12 months about 60% on the agency revenue side.
Now, something that you said about the producer you have, maybe he sounds like he's doing a lot, mostly life and health, but having a producer that knows the market from the market, I think is a cheat code
It is
for commercial risk.
definitely, it is a bit of a cheat code. The process to get a church to approve a proposal and purchase from you is a very unique experience because there's typically not one decision maker.
Yeah.
There's a committee. It's a board of directors, it's a set of elders, it's a finance committee, it's a group of people. And as a result, we understand that because these are lives that, I watched my dad live and Kevin lived himself,
Mhm.
and so we understand those processes and we can navigate them efficiently. Some of your other commercial risks are not going to have the same committee process, but they're going to have that unique way that they approach the sales process.
Yep.
And if you come from that world or you're deeply embedded in that world, it makes it easier for you to navigate those conversations.
Yep. It'd be like somebody who's never bought insurance,
Yeah.
never bought a home. They've never bought a car. They've never gone to a dealership and bought a car, so they don't know what the insurance expectation is for that aspect. And so I think that we a lot of times will hire and be like, "Well, go figure it out," instead of recruiting from the industry or recruiting people that understand at least the buying process.
We have a process when we hire a commercial producer. If they can't tell us what niche they want to target because they have passion, interest, or experience, or all three in it,
Mhm.
we don't hire them.
Yep.
Simple. You have to be able to explain the need for something. Everybody knows they need general liability. They don't understand why you want to put that inside of a BOP, or they may not understand, well, I run a daycare. What do I need cyber liability?
Mhm.
Well, are you processing automatic payments?
Mhm.
You need at least some third party coverage, even if that's handled by a piece of software. Well, if you don't have interest, passion, knowledge, experience, that process becomes really difficult.
Well, it's hard to do that if you don't have those things. Now, let's kind of pivot the conversation.
Okay.
The niche thing is the one when people come to me as a marketer and say, Nick, how do I do this marketing stuff?" I typically say, "Go check out what Ron Wadley's doing."
Well, that's very kind of you to
It's
say.
there's a handful I have a handful of agencies and I have a handful of websites that I go look at what they're doing. Don't copy what they're doing, but look at how they're operating and see how you can implement that in your agency. So the niche thing, that's again one of the reasons. It's if you're going to do commercial, even I know an agency down in town, Texas. They have a producer who writes a ton of home. She only writes new homes, and she doesn't even cross sell. She makes enough money that she can just do that because she niched down and has the relationships. So it works whether it's personal lines, commercial lines, having those niches. But let's talk. You kind of talked about it earlier. Let's talk about the content
Okay.
and creating that.
Big time. Yeah.
I believe in the content flywheel. Let's talk about how you create content and use that as a flywheel motion to attract people and keep them engaged.
So, one of the things that I firmly believe in, if you're going to create content, step number one is to identify the most comfortable way for you to create it. Some people are comfortable talking to a camera and they can speak very well about whatever the topic is, the subject matter is. You can leverage technology to take that video and turn it into multiple things.
Mhm,
I personally am very comfortable sitting down and writing something. It has become muscle memory for me because I do it every single day.
mhm,
I can then subsequently take that and spray it into a lot of places. So the first step is to figure out where are you comfortable, and then you can exploit that. What we do is we sit down and we say, what are the questions that prospects are asking us? What are the customers are asking us? What are the questions that we immediately see if we go Google about the subject?
mhm.
We take those sets of questions and we begin to create articles for them. So some people have heard about abuse and molestation coverage, not a really popular thing, right? Nobody
Mhm.
wants to talk about it, but it's heavily investigated, especially over the last several years where churches are concerned because there's been so many problems. Churches are beginning to wise up about this because you see scandals from small churches to mega churches and every place in between.
Mhm.
You can use those stories and questions about those stories to create content. So there is a large mega church that's just a few miles down the road from me that had a explosive scandal
Yeah.
last year. And I actually used what they call newsjacking and talked about the situation and laid out, okay, these are the things that occurred that are well documented in multiple media sources. So none of this is me being salacious. This is where the risk management and insurance process could have helped saved them this grief.
Mhm.
So we're educating and explaining why we actually talk about these things. Nobody cares about directors and officers insurance until a lawsuit's filed,
Yeah.
right? And so you take those stories, those situations, those questions, and you turn them into something that the person can emotionally relate to, see themselves in the story, and understand why they need it. From there, the flywheel and technology is really good at this, will allow me to convert that into a video script that I can make a quick video out of. It'll allow me to convert it into social media posts. It'll allow me to send the video to YouTube and in all the other places that you can take content, email campaigns that allow me to show value to current customers and cross sell them and make additional money. It begins to feed itself over time.
Yeah. Something I think, well, and a lot of agents will come to me and ask me about marketing and content and everything else. The first thing you need to figure out, yeah, figure out what the way you are comfortable creating content. The first step is figuring out how you're going to distribute content. Because if you
Sh
don't have a way to distribute it, especially in 2025, relying on search is the last nail on the coffin for a business, I think.
it I would push
Solely,
back on that a little bit.
solely relying on.
Solely relying on search, if you don't have an established website, can be really tough right now
Yep.
because zero click searches have gone through the roof. Used to it was a third of all Google searches were zero click. Now it's like two-thirds. The AI overviews, Perplexity search, Chat GPT search results, all of those are changing how people are interacting with the search. The conversions are down
Oh,
even if you're being found. The trick is when
mhm,
you are being found is to make sure that you're still getting that hook that brings them to your website
mhm.
and a strong call to action when they realize they need something.
Yep. A way to get into your ecosystem,
That's right.
whether it's a lead magnet, it can be simple. It can be as simple as like how I use join our newsletter.
I'm going to be brutally frank, Nick. I don't have a single lead magnet on my website.
Quotes are a lead magnet also.
We don't ever use the word quote either.
Right.
We use advisement and proposal as opposed to the word
Yeah.
quote. We're using a hard call to action that is clicked to speak with one of our experts to get your issue sorted out today.
Yeah.
We're not using a traditional lead magnet that most people think of where you give up your email address at the top of the funnel
Yeah.
and you work them through all the stage.
No.
We don't go there.
Well, I've been advocating against that method for years. We've been at like, hey, like for Canopy Connect, it's book a demo. Our lead magnet
Yeah.
is booking a demo, learning about the product. I think
It,
agencies, because the same thing, advisement, schedule a call to get it doesn't even have to be a quote, just a policy, policy advice, something
policy
like that.
review.
Policy
Yeah.
review. Those are still lead magnets, the book that nobody ever
Yeah.
reads.
Nobody
I
looks
have
at them.
I have evidence of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I have another business and we produce lead magnets and I look at the click rates and why are we doing this?
Mhm.
This is dumb.
So let's talk. So people can find, search, social media, all those things. How are you using tech to stay in front of them throughout the buying process?
So HubSpot allows us a lot of cool things that we can do. One of the things that we do, so we get that initial conversion on the website, we're immediately redirecting to a second form so we can get a deeper embed of their information.
Mhm.
We're not relying on them just emailing us stuff or picking up the phone later. If I can get them to complete the second form, our chances of actually engaging them in the sales process and presenting a proposal goes up almost to about 75%.
Yeah. So the first part is a micro commitment, getting somebody to
Right.
just make the smallest commitment to the next step is, I love that.
So if we get the micro commitment and we don't get the, hey, let's get married commitment, as Donald Miller puts it in How to Build a Story Brand, we have a flow that comes behind from an email and text standpoint that is completely automated. I am not wasting my producer's time. And I am allowing the technology to do the follow up to see if they will take the next step.
Yep.
And what we find is we pick up another 10 to 20% of those folks. The rest of them just go into a long term buy or die campaign.
Yep.
Once we get that second form filled out, I've got another sequence that follows behind. Part of
Part
that
of that
sequence is a
is a manual.
manual phone call. Uh, You still have to talk to people,
Oh yeah.
but we've got automated emails that follow up with them because we do have some additional information that we need. We use some technology to get into what are known as supplementals and accords in commercial insurance. There's some technology we leverage there. And then we are using the HubSpot technology to stay in front of these prospects while we're working through the system. I will assign call tasks, I will assign text tasks. There will be emails that will go out. We have email templates when people are ready to communicate once they've got a proposal, things of that nature. But we are heavily using that there. For people that do not buy, we do have some retargeting stuff that we do. A lot of it, as long as we get the email address, will be email follow up prolonged over time because all of the content that I'm using, I'm able to remix into an email that doesn't look like I'm trying to sell you. I'm trying to help you and educate you.
Yeah,
And
it's
eventually you raise your hand.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing when I talk about creating content and I try to get agencies to buy into content, I'm like, it's not just if you make a blog post a week, it's 52 weeks of content.
I see two
That's
videos.
more like 100 and I can split it out 160 emails.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can get more granular, but
Yeah,
even just
and just
average Joe Blow with ChatGPT can turn that into 52 emails that bring people back to you, that
mhm,
turn that into 52 video scripts that you can then subsequently publish. And if you're even halfway tech literate, you can turn them into shorts and
mhm,
reels and all the things.
yep. I don't know how many times people have reached out to me. So, like, I post idiotic things on TikTok. Like, I make meme videos, and I don't know how many times I've had agents reach out to me, "Hey, how do I learn about what you're doing?" Just from me
Eh,
being a moron and bored at
well, and so me being the crotchety Gen X a hole, I'm not on TikTok, but
Right,
no,
it doesn't
I
matter
get it.
platform. It's shorts, it's whatever.
I
Uh,
glean business from a Discord server that talks about college sports.
yeah, I mean, being present in multiple channels and having ways to be around when they're ready, because the B2B statistic is only 7 to 8% of people in your lead funnel are ready to purchase right now, and that's pretty
That's fair.
pretty fair across most industries.
Sure.
So if somebody's coming in and they're just looking for information that they insurance is really funny about this where people are like, "Oh, well, the renewal's in 90 days," or "The renewal's already," like, who cares? Stay in front of them. They're
Yes.
gonna their current broker or agent's gonna screw up, the carrier's gonna screw up, or they're just gonna feel unheard eventually.
So the one thing that I think a lot of people overlook on the commercial insurance side, they produce a blog for their website.
Mhm.
They don't turn that into an article on LinkedIn a week later.
Yeah,
Like we have there are certain
I'm mad
church
about that.
insurance search terms in the state of Texas. If you go to Google, we will rank for 5 plus out of the top 10. And some of those entries are a duplicate that's just been published to LinkedIn as an article.
Yeah. That's the so I would say there's a technical gap here that I think a lot of people miss out on. I would only do that after you've confirmed Google has indexed your original article.
100%. And that's why I say
Yeah.
2 weeks later, if you're regularly publishing content, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Mhm.
not onerous, also not easy,
No.
but doable. Google's algorithm is going to begin to understand that you're publishing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Mhm.
So they're going to index like
Mhm.
midnight Thursday, midnight Saturday,
Yeah.
sit for a week, and then push it in that article format to LinkedIn. And that's honestly what my producers do.
Mhm.
They take the things we publish to our website, they give it a week or two, and then they publish it as an article to their LinkedIn profile. And they're getting ranked, and we get clicks from it.
Well, and, like, they're using their LinkedIn profile.
Correct. There's some of that as well.
Yeah.
We're not spamming people with automated cold LinkedIn messages that nobody wants to get.
As a
We
marketer, I get 10 a week.
I get probably twice that.
Yeah. And I'm like, I
Don't
don't
need a
want
gift card that
either
bad.
one of those things.
Yeah. I can afford my own Starbucks thing.
Yeah, and it's like a $10 Starbucks gift card.
It's at least a full latte if it's a
They
$10
sent me
card.
a $100 Starbucks gift card, but then
Yeah,
they'd be heartbroken because I have no buying power, so
it
I don't buy anything.
but these are the things, like, people don't consider when they're producing that piece of content. How do you turn it into an email? How does it become a LinkedIn article? Because not only can you turn it into a LinkedIn article, you can get a quick summary and make it a LinkedIn post in between your website and publishing it as a LinkedIn article,
Mhm.
and you're just getting more bites at the apple. It creates surface area. We were talking about luck and how luck has a better chance of attaching to you if you create a larger surface area that it can attach to.
Mhm.
If you think about making coffee, you're a coffee nerd, I'm a coffee nerd. We've talked about French press and pour overs, right? When you make a pour over or you make a French press, you use a coarse grind on the coffee. You're creating surface area that the water can attach to make a better tasting cup of coffee.
Mhm.
Your content is doing the same thing when you're looking for prospects for whatever your niche is. The more you put out there, the more surface area you're giving that prospect to find and attach to you so that you can make coffee for them.
Yeah. That's a perfect analogy. If you wanna make a finer grind, you can make espresso and you can wake people up.
You can do that as well, but they probably need to understand what espresso is gonna do to them before you do that.
Yeah.
It's it's a process and it's an application in the right place. You would never put a coffee ground for espresso into a French press because you're gonna eat that cup of
Oh,
coffee, not
yeah.
drink it, right?
Yeah.
So you have to apply it to the right place, and that's
Well,
where some of the nuance comes in.
that's like I test this all the time. I can take what I post on LinkedIn, works really good, gets good engagement, and I have the same people as Facebook friends
Yes,
post the same thing on Facebook, and it's crickets.
correct.
You're
And that is one thing that people do not understand.
Yep,
It's the algorithm shifts, the algorithm change, it's rented because you don't control the algorithm.
yep. There's an agency that I worked with that takes the same thing they post on Facebook with logos and text and QR codes, and they post them on Instagram. I'm like, "No, people are on Instagram to see people at the beach, food, things going on, visual, like, they wanna see pictures of your team, not your logo."
Or a house on fire
Yeah,
and an after shot that shows how you rebuilt it. People need to understand that story aspect because Instagram is a visual storytelling platform, which
yep. So the way I've always looked at the different platforms, Facebook is for friends and family. The people you know most intimately, who know you most intimately. That's like a good like group of people. Extracting value from Facebook is really hard. Whether it's your personal profile, and it's even harder with your business profiles. Too many businesses. This is my biggest complaint about the food truck industry. They rely on Facebook to tell me where they're going to be, but you don't see it till 3 days later.
yeah, because the algorithm only shows that post to about 1 to 3% of their followership.
Yeah,
And if you're not part of the lucky 1 to 3, you're never gonna see it.
yeah.
The
So,
business page on Facebook is 100% driven by pay to play.
yep,
And
it's an
anybody who
advertising platform.
if anybody doesn't understand that, they're gonna have
They're
some
gonna
serious problems to overcome.
Then Instagram is visual. Even if you specialize in auto, be like, "Hey, this is the claim we had, and now this is this person after they got their." The home is another great a home claim. If they'll let you, if
Yeah.
you get the permission and they'll let you tell their story, that's a great use of Instagram. Or I like to use Instagram for culture, for company culture, like talking about what the company's doing, talking about the employees and the staff. That is, especially if you're hiring younger adults, that's the place they're gonna go look and see what this company's doing. They're not gonna go to LinkedIn. They're gonna go to Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, even if you have that, and look at your story and look at your business and what you've posted, and is that somewhere I wanna work?
It it using it for recruiting purpose, it's an excellent example. So my agency does not actually participate in Instagram.
Yeah.
I've had people that have asked me about that, and I recently was involved in a conversation with a really smart guy. that I've learned a lot of stuff from through the years, and he was talking about a purposeful absence from platforms. He said, "Figure out what your primary platform is, figure out where you wanna be secondarily. You can't be everywhere effectively, so figure out what you want to avoid." While I do have a personal profile on Instagram, my business doesn't do anything there
Yeah. Well, and
because
I like you do need to pick.
yeah,
We have a finite amount of time. We have finite resources for marketing time and marketing spend. Salaries are part of your marketing spend. And you can't just go, "Hey, you're a young person. Go post on Instagram for us."
right, yeah. And that's so there's ways that you can do this. You talked about the car. I've got a couple of friends who they specialize in classic cars.
Mhm.
So one of the ways that they exploit Pinterest and Instagram are through classic car images.
Mhm.
And they are constantly getting traction because people want to view these cars,
Mhm.
right? Like guys like me, I'd love to have a 64 and a half Mustang. I'm always going to stop and look at a picture of an old Mustang.
Mhm.
You can become known as the insurance guy who handles these
Mhm.
or exotics or whatever it is you want to pursue. But people who own those kinds of vehicles have other things that you can cross, right?
Mhm.
So that's their lead magnet, if you will. They're look
I put together an entire strategy a while ago for Pinterest for car people.
yeah.
If
To
you're an insurance agent who loves cars, there's this amazing free talk coffee is my favorite group on the internet.
yeah.
They don't tolerate toxic car show garbage. If you're doing burnouts, if you're being a menace, they kick you out and you're not allowed to come back. The strategy I put together for an agency was go to your local cars and coffee, bring some lapel mics, your cell phone, and a tripod,
Yeah.
and go find cars and have conversations. I have a brand new truck. I love it. If I was going to do any modifications to it, I would bring it to Cars and Coffee. And if anybody wanted to record and ask me questions about my build, I would talk ad nauseum.
Oh, for sure.
And then you go, that's awesome. I'm an insurance agency. We do these, we record these. Can I use this video as content on our website and then publish that content to Pinterest and Instagram?
Yep.
And then
Nope.
it's I
You're
want to do
highlighting
this.
them.
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
It's business development without being salesy.
Well, there's an old adage, right? Everybody knows they're being sold, but nobody wants to know that they're being sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a local agent, I know several agencies who are implementing this. It happened to me last year. I had a podcaster reach out to me, or an assistant to a podcaster reach out to me. Like, "Hey, we see you're a marketer, demand gen. Would you be interested in jumping on our podcast and talking about what you do and what your pain points are?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I did the podcast episode, and I researched the podcaster and the company behind the podcast, and it was a marketing product. They never once mentioned their product.
Oh,
They just said, "Hey, would you be willing to share your podcast episode with your network on LinkedIn and Twitter?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
sure, but
I
it
know several agencies who are doing the same thing. They're just making a hyper local podcast. They're talking to business people. They're never bringing up insurance, and they're just talking to cool businesses in town.
so the next thing we're launching this month is a Texas-centric podcast on how to be a better church administrator. There'll be some insurance episodes thrown in there because it's such a big line item in the budget, but how do we find employees? How do we provide benefits to them? How do we handle a building campaign where we need to raise money?
Mhm.
How do we handle HR issues? And so you're providing value to these people but you're not selling them.
Yeah.
But when they need what you have, they're gonna remember you.
Yeah. Now now we're we're coming up on 40 minutes. This will be my longest episode to date, which I knew it would
Sorry
be.
about that.
No, it's like, I know you and I could talk for hours about
I we
this.
could. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
we've talked about niching down, whether it's the personal or commercial side. Niching down is all in the adage is the riches are in the niches, right? And it's true. Like,
It's very
you
true.
know, Canopy Connect,
It's very true.
insurance agents.
Yeah,
You like that's
yeah.
our product is for insurance agents,
Yep.
and it's really good. Then creating content to support the niche
Yeah.
ties right into the whole HubSpot flywheel method, and
Yes.
it's I've been screaming from the top of the mountain for the last 3 years about this concept, and it's not every agency is recording their calls.
Yes.
Just look through the call recordings for the questions that people ask.
You can get transcripts of all of them and do searches on it.
Yep.
Like, it's not hard.
No. Or, like, I there's one I know of. What they do is everybody's supposed to submit 5 questions they are asked every week,
Yeah. It's
and
endless
that's
content.
yeah, and then you just create content about it, however you're most comfortable.
And even if you've created a piece of content about it before, if somebody has recently asked about it, you've got a new spin on the same thing.
Yep, right.
But when you tie it into stories because it's affecting a deductible or some inflation has caused the need for extended replacement cost, or you're, you've got wildfires ravaging an entire city
Mhm.
in California. You've got a tornado that's you can explain a dwelling value 100 ways.
Yep, and Google's gonna love you for it because it's gonna
Absolutely.
look at you like, "Oh, wait, this company creates a lot of content around this subject
Subject
that
matter
people are interested."
expertise.
Yep, and Google's like, "Oh, yeah," and there's traffic going to this page
Yeah, yeah.
through distribution. That's, I think, one of the things a lot of people will really miss about the Google algorithm. They know because we all install Google Analytics on our website,
Oh, yeah.
so they know, "Oh, hey, this is getting traffic."
So
So
we
we are
are a month from hail season starting back up in Texas.
Mhm.
The most viewed page on my website is simply titled, "What is a roof payment schedule and why should I care?" It has had thousands and thousands of hits through the years. As that page began to take off, all the other pages took off with it.
Well, yeah, because that page is getting indexed.
Yeah.
The spider's going, "Oh, there's other things related to this."
Yes. The
So, yeah.
interlinking on the pages has been important.
So, any other advice people should have when about niching down or creating content to support your niche?
The thing with creating content is the first time you do it, you're absolutely going to suck. Don't stop just because the first time you did it, it sucked. The first time that I tried to shoot a basketball was horrific. I had double vision, big Coke bottle glasses. I was in seventh grade and it went really, really poorly. I kept trying to do it to where I was at least be able to play high school basketball in small towns in the state of Missouri all 4 years I was in high school. I'm not the world's greatest basketball player, but I figured out enough through repetition to actually stay on teams that made the playoffs every year. Know that it's going to suck, but don't stop until it begins to improve. And as it begins to improve, you're not going to want to stop. You're going to keep going.
I started a newsletter 2 years ago. It had the only intent is I wanted to be a better writer.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I wanted to do was just I wanted to be a better writer. I could write ad copy, I could write emails, but my long form content really sucked. Now I crank out 1,800 word articles every week.
I generally publish 1,000 to 1,200 words every single day.
Yeah, and it's repetition and practice, just like everything else.
There's a little AI magic too, but yeah, it's mostly repetition and practice.
So, well, Ron, I really appreciate you jumping on the call. One more thing. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way they can, if they want to ask you any questions, if they just want to talk shop, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So if they wanna pick my brain, they're not allowed because it just says you're cheap.
Yeah.
The best way to get a hold of me, my email is ron at insurance for FOR Texans, TEXANS.com. And I would be happy to spend a little bit of time and trade ideas and secrets, but there's no brain left to pick. It's all gone.
Thanks, Ron.